Every once in a while, something very exciting comes along in aviation that not only appeals to the aviator crowd, but also to people at large. And with us today to talk about one of those instances is Adam Smith, Executive Director of the Commemorative Air Force. Adam, we've got an amazing piece of history that you guys are working on restoring called That's All, Brother. Tell us about it.
Well, the story goes back about a year, Paul. A sort of an obscure blog posting appeared on the web that seemed to indicate that the aeroplane that led the D-Day invasion in 1944 had been rediscovered in an aircraft yard in Wisconsin. We got really interested in that and followed up, and sure enough, this airplane, That's All, Brother, had passed through 16 different owners since World War II, but it is actually the airplane that led the D-Day invasion. So basically, we put in place a program to acquire the airplane and bring it back to its original World War II configuration. And this week we launched a Kickstarter fundraising campaign to finish the process of completing that transaction.
And talk about a wild success. The Kickstarter was up 36 hours, and tell us what happened with it.
Yeah, the morning it launched, we hit the launch button with some trepidation. We don't know if the support will be there for what we're trying to do, but it was successful beyond our wildest dreams. Within 36 hours, we'd reached the fundraising goal, and are delighted to be able to say we're going to save this airplane and put it back in the sky where it belongs.
That's amazing, and I think the world kind of rallied together to save this important piece of history.
Certainly did. We were able to look at where the donations are coming from, and of course it's lots and lots of donations from America, but it was really interesting to see donations coming in from England, from France, a lot from France, from Belgium, from Holland. D-Day was a very important event in the history of the world, and for anyone that cares about freedom, it's an important day, and it's really nice how people around the world have picked this story up and are willing to support it.
Yeah, it's one of those moments in history that affected the entire planet. And I think people recognize that. What's the average? When you start a Kickstarter, they give you some information, some background. What do they tell you the average donation on a Kickstarter project would be?
Yeah, they've raised about $1.5 billion through Kickstarter over the last 4 years, and the average donation is about $25 to a project, and we've been really thrilled with the fact that with our project the average donation has been $160.
So tell me about this airframe. It was sitting there waiting to be taken out of its original configuration.
Well, it's for those of your viewers that are familiar with Oshkosh, which of course is a great name in aviation, and there is a company on the other side of the field from where EAA runs AirVenture called Basilar Turbo Conversions, and what they do is they convert DC-3s and C-47s into what they call a BT-67 turboprop. So essentially they remanufacture these old airplanes and turn them into very modern, high-tech turboprop airplanes. So they keep a stock of old airframes that they rotate through and turn into new airplanes, and really they tear them apart. They lengthen the fuselage, they put modern avionics in, they put turboprop engines on them. And so That's All, Brother, this amazing piece of history, was sitting there in their yard, basically scheduled to be torn apart and remanufactured. And in fact, it was the next one in line. And thankfully, Basilar have been a great company to work for, and I really want to recognize how great they've been to work with in terms of realizing that this piece of history needed to be preserved. So it disrupted their business a little bit, but they gave us the time to try and raise the funds to make this happen. So thanks to Basilar, and we've been able to get a great outcome for this, because they're going to get another airplane that they can put in and convert.
So going forward, this looks like an amazing opportunity to get this living history out in front of a lot of people. What are the plans for That's All, Brother when it comes together?
Well, now that we've very rapidly achieved the goal of saving the airplane and raising the money to do the transaction, we much quicker than we thought, we're moving on to the next phase, which is to restore the airplane. We want to bring it back to being a very, very authentic representation of what the aeroplane was on the 6th of June 1944. So we've got to go and find the parts and the pieces to really make that happen. Because this aeroplane led the D-Day invasion, it was very specially equipped with a primitive form of airborne radar to guide the whole formation of 800 aircraft into the drop zone. So we want to even go back and reinstall that radar equipment and the radome and things like that. When that is done, the idea is that the airplane will fly, and as a lot of the CAF airplanes do, what we like to do is not keep the airplanes in a dusty museum, but to take them out, tour them around the country. So That's All Brother will be a touring educational program. Because it's such a big aeroplane, there's this big interior space that we think we can do some really interesting things with. So we've been talking about using the aircraft as what we call a flying classroom. So if you can imagine that school children will come out to the airport, get on board That's All Brother, we can darken the interior and take them back in time so that they can have an experience that makes them think about what it was like to jump out of this airplane into France in 1944.
That's amazing. You know, you really get this sense of history when you're in one of the CAF's airplanes. You can read about it, you can watch old film, but when you're in there and you smell and you touch and use all your other senses to learn about these airplanes and what it was like for these 18, 19-year-old people flying across oceans and doing the bravest things I think the world has ever done, that is fantastic. So it's really great to see this airframe saved from not being scrapped, but not being an original C-47 anymore. Adam, anything that the public and aviators can do to help this project along?
Well, first of all, I would like to say a huge heartfelt thank you to everybody that supported the campaign, everybody that has spread the word through social media and shared the video and things like that, because that all helps to promote what we're trying to do. Because we hit the goal so early in the Kickstarter, we have set what they call on Kickstarter a stretch goal. There's so much support for this that we want to take the opportunity to try and fund the restoration piece of the project. So the fundraiser will continue now until July the 5th. So if people are interested in the story, please go along to that'sallbrother.org. And you can see a great video, you can read about the history of the airplane, and if you like what we're doing, you can make a contribution.
Well, and if you don't like what they're doing, you probably should reimagine your priorities in this life. Adam Smith, Executive Director of the Commemorative Air Force, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you guys for the effort that you're putting into this amazing project. And hey, get out there and check them out. It's that'sallbrother.org, correct? And you can find out a lot more. I'm Paul Harrop for AOPA Live.